Selling in Manhattan Beach right now can feel like you're stepping into a moving walkway. Either it helps you glide into a clean, confident exit, or it quietly drags you into months of stress if you pick the wrong lane. Here's the sharp truth as of March 2026. Using the most recent February numbers, single-family homes went from a 30-day median marketing rhythm in January to 8 days in February, while condos and townhomes did the exact opposite, going from 3 days to 56 days. That's not a slight shift. That's two different markets living inside the same city. And if you're thinking about selling in the next 3 to 6 months, this isn't just interesting data. This is the difference between protecting your equity with leverage and making one pricing decision that costs you money you never see coming. So let's talk about what's actually happening in Manhattan Beach right now, calmly, strategically, and in plain English, so that you can make a decision you won't regret later. If you're considering a move sometime between now and late summer, your real decision isn't whether to sell or wait. Your real decision is, do you sell into this version of Manhattan Beach where detached homes are moving with urgency, but attached properties are stalling out, or do you risk a different buyer pool, different competition, and a different negotiating environment later? And there's a wild card hanging over the next few months that a lot of homeowners are underestimating. It is the cost of capital mood shift. Not just rates in the abstract, but how buyers behave when they feel like financing conditions are improving while the job market signals feel a little less certain. That combination tends to create buyers who are more active but also more selective. They don't rush into bad deals, they rush into the right deal. Now let me paint you a scene that fits what I'm seeing on the ground in Manhattan Beach right now. Picture a Saturday morning. In the tree section, you can feel the urgency. You have families doing laps, circling blocks, scanning for that one house that fits their life. There's a sense of, if we don't move now, someone else will. Then you go a few minutes in the other direction and the energy changes. You get into attached product, the condos and townhomes, and the vibe is more like convince me. More comparison, more math, more hesitation, and more time. Same city, different tempo. So for March 2026, I want you to keep 3 lanes in your head. The sprint lane represents detached single-family homes where speed and leverage still live. The comparison lane represents condos and townhomes where buyers have time and sellers feel friction. And the headline mirage is the place homeowners get trapped when they anchor to the citywide number that isn't actually telling the street level story. Now let's set the foundation with the one metric that acts like a truth serum. In February, single-family homes in Manhattan Beach were sitting at 2.6 months of supply, while condos and townhomes were at 4.1 months. In plain English, detached housing is still meaningfully scarcity driven, and attached housing is drifting towards a more balanced, buyer-friendly environment. Now here's what I'm going to do for you in this video. I'm going to help you figure out which lane you're actually in so that you don't make the most common and most expensive mistake, using Manhattan Beach as if it were one market. Your home doesn't live in the city. Your home lives in a specific buyer pool with a specific tolerance for price, condition, and monthly payments. If you want this translated to your exact address without guessing, I have a simple clarity tool called HomeBot. It is a monthly financial dashboard for your home that tracks your estimated equity, mortgage options, and buying power as rates move. If you want access, the link is in the description. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Mr. Hernandez, your personal real estate advisor here in Manhattan Beach. And my job is not to hype you up. My job is to help you protect your equity with a plan that fits your timeline and your risk tolerance. Because the most painful real estate mistakes usually aren't dramatic. They're quiet. They're the seller who lists too high, sits too long, and then negotiates from weakness. Or the seller who waits for one more season and then runs into more competition, a pick your buyer pool, or a macro mood shift they didn't plan for. So here's the roadmap. First, I'll show you where the sprint lane is right now, how demand is behaving, and what that changes for you if you sell. Then we'll talk about the headline mirage and why one big number can trick you into overpricing. Then we pivot to condos and townhomes, the comparison lane, because the strategy there is fundamentally different. After that, I'll give you a short macro check that is quick, non-doom, and directly tied to your buyer pool. Then we'll talk about the structural stuff that doesn't show up on a normal CMA and what the city is doing, what that means for long-term scarcity, and how it changes your timing math. And then I'll land the plane with a bottom line for the next 3 to 6 months. Alright, let's start with the sprint lane. In February, Manhattan Beach single-family demand showed up in a way that matters. We saw 15 pending sales in in February, down from 18 in January, and 26 new listings came to the market. And here's the pricing power tale. The median percent of last list price received moved to a flawless 100%. Said simply, buyers are still absorbing what comes up for sale, and when a home is positioned correctly, sellers are not giving up price at the finish line. We saw this perfectly illustrated by 3 specific properties that hit the market and secured a buyer in exactly 0 days. 2 of which were pristine 2025 or 2026 builds. The other was a 1950s home, proving that buyers will pay an unquestioned premium to walk in, drop their bags, and avoid dealing with contractors or coastal commission delays. Now, if you're an owner in the sprint lane, meaning you own a single family home, you might be wondering, if I list now, is this going to sell clean? Or am I going to end up sitting and stressing? Based on what we're seeing in these most recent numbers, the safest way to think about it is this. If buyers are taking listings into pending status at this pace and the median seller is landing at full last list price, then your leverage lives in your first impression, not in waiting it out. So here's your decision rule. If you want a clean exit in the next 3 to 6 months, your safest posture is precision and realism upfront, because this lane rewards homes that are easy to say yes to. And here's the boundary line that keeps this honest. The right move depends on your home's condition, your pricing band, and your risk tolerance. This is where a one-on-one strategy conversation matters. Now, if you're buying in the sprint lane, your question might be, do I actually have negotiating power right now, or am I still in a seller-driven pocket? When sellers are capturing full last list price at the median, your negotiation posture has to shift, not into reckless decisions, but into pre-decided standards. Your safest posture is to be decisive on the right fit and disciplined on everything else. Said differently, decide what you're willing to live with before you walk into the home, not after you fall in love with the backyard. Your best move depends on the home's condition, the comp set, and your financing readiness so that you don't treat this like a one-size-fits-all. Now let's talk about the headline mirage, because this is where smart homeowners accidentally make incredibly expensive decisions. In February, the single-family median sales price in Manhattan Beach printed at $4,770,000, up from $3,220,000 in January. That sounds like a rocket ship. It sounds like we're back in 2021. But this is where I want you to slow down and think like a strategist, not a headline reader. Because the underlying value baseline, the median price per square foot, came in at $1,356 in February. It was essentially flat month over month. In plain English, that gap is telling you something critical. The median price jump is being driven by which tier of homes happen to close, not by the entire market suddenly appreciating by $1.5 million in a single month. People just bought significantly larger homes. This is exactly how sellers misprice. They hear one big number, they emotionally anchor to it, and then their home sits because they are not actually competing in that ultra luxury tier. To prove this, look at how the market dictates value. We saw an $11.1 million sale at 8116 6th Street command an astronomical $2,384 per square foot because a prime, walkable double lot is the ultimate scarce asset. Then you look at 613 36th Street, which pulled $1,992 per square foot on a tiny footprint because buyers pay a massive premium for a beautifully executed jewel box. Meanwhile, a large house at 908 Rosecrans Avenue only got $972 per square foot. It backs out onto a 4-lane highway, and the market dictates that busy street locations demand heavy, unavoidable discounts. You cannot anchor to the headline median or your neighbor's cul-de-sac price if you are on a major artery. Now here's another grounding reality check. Active single-family inventory rose to 50 in February, up from 43 in January, and 18 single-family homes closed. So what does this mean for you if you sell? It means you're still in a scarcity-leaning environment, but your buyer pool is educated and your competition set is real. You don't have infinite room to try a number and hope the market catches up. This is where the trade-off gets real. If you're an owner, your question might be, am I at risk of overpricing and chasing the market with reductions? Here's the data first answer. When the headline median is moving because of a mix, the market becomes more dangerous for homeowners who price based on emotion instead of comparables. The mistake in this lane isn't just listing high. The mistake is listing high and believing the market owes you time. So here's your decision rule. simple. If the market is efficient and the buyer pool has options, then your safest posture is to price for the buyer you actually need, your real competition set, not for the story you wish were true. And again, you have a few conditional paths. If you prioritize equity protection with a clean exit, you aim to be the obvious best choice amongst the homes a buyer would realistically compare to yours. If your goal is to push for a premium, you can do it when the home genuinely earns that premium through condition, lot, location, or rarity. The trade-off is that you must be willing to respond quickly if the market tells you no early. If your posture is to hold and monitor, you're essentially choosing to keep your current leverage intact while accepting the risk that the buyer pool mood or competition changes later. The right move depends on your home's condition, your pricing band, and your risk tolerance. This is where a one-on-one strategy conversation matters most. And if you're buying in this lane, you might be wondering, am I overpaying because the headlines are loud? The safest posture is to anchor to the value baseline, not the median headline. If the price per square foot reality is stable, the way you avoid overpaying is by staying disciplined to the comps and condition, not by waiting for a mythical crash that may never show up in a place as supply constrained as Manhattan Beach. Now, I want to make this real without turning this into a lecture. In the tree section, I'm seeing the market reward urgency on the right homes. One recent closed single-family sale went under contract so fast it registered 2 days on market and closed at $6 million. That's not a promise for your home. That's a snapshot of what happens when a home hits the market in a sprint lane and the buyer pool says that's the one. In the sand section, you can see how the same neighborhood can still punish misalignment. I saw one closed sale at $2,683,000 after 8 days, clean and fast. And we saw that other property that sat for 280 days and still closed at $5,650,000. Same broader area, two completely different outcomes because the market doesn't reward the neighborhood, it rewards the fit between price, condition, and what buyers can justify. In Miracosta, I'm also seeing that even strong locations don't override mismatch. A recent closed sale sat 187 days and closed at $5,350,000. Again, no drama, no moral judgment, just a clear reminder. Manhattan Beach is not up or down, it's efficient. It reacts quickly when the offering is right, and it gets stubborn when it's not. Okay, now let's pivot to the comparison lane, condos and townhomes. This is where a lot of homeowners are carrying the wrong expectations into 2026. In February, attached properties showed pricing power slipping. The median percent of last list price received deteriorated to 97.2%, and the median percent of original price received came in at 97.9%. Active listings climbed to 17, up from 11 in January. We saw 10 new listings, 3 pending sales, and 4 closed sales. What that really means for you if you sell is this: buyers have time, buyers have options, and buyers are not paying a premium for close enough. Take the townhome at 18 Malaga Place East as a prime example. It took 72 days to sell. When you are on the market for over 2 months, the psychology changes entirely. The seller becomes fatigued and buyers smell blood in the water. They know you are tired. That sub 100% ratio reflects a market where condo sellers are being forced to surrender leverage and negotiate down to close the deal. In plain English, attached homes are no longer living in a pressure cooker. They're living in a slow, evaluative environment where buyers compare HOA strengths, monthly costs, and long-term risk. If you're an owner in the condo and townhome lane, you might be thinking, if I list now, am I going to sit and get picked apart? Based on what we're seeing right now, your safest posture is different than the single-family seller. If buyers are routinely negotiating below list and inventory is stacking, then your leverage lives in being the best value early, not in waiting for the market to feel hotter. So here's the decision rule. If the market is behaving like a comparison market with longer marketing times and discounts from list, then your safest posture is to win your competitive set early or accept a timeline trade-off. The right move depends on your unit's HOA profile, your home's condition, and your urgency. This is where you might consider a one-on-one strategy session. If you're buying in the condo and townhome lane, your question might be, do I actually have negotiating power right now, or am I still going to get steamrolled? When sellers are clearing below list at the median and inventory is rising, you do have leverage, but the disciplined way to use it isn't through gimmicks. It's through patience, comparison, and due diligence. Your posture is to take your time, verify the building health, and don't let a pretty remodel distract you from the monthly monthly obligations that you'll live with for years. The right move depends on the building's financials, reserves, and your long-term plan, so get advice tailored to the specific unit, not a generic market vibe. Alright, let me give you a quick scoreboard so that you can stop trying to force one strategy onto two different markets. If you're an owner in single family, you're still in a scarcity-driven lane where the market rewards sharp positioning and punishes emotional pricing. If you're an owner in condo or townhomes, you're in a comparison-driven lane where time and discounts are part of the environment and your plan has to account for that. And if you're making decisions based on the one loud city headline, you're risking the most common mistake, pricing your home for the wrong buyer pool. If you want me to map your specific address to the right lane so that you can decide to sell now versus hold with less guessing, start with HomeBot using the link in the description. And if you want to skip that entirely, schedule a one-on-one strategy session with me directly. No pressure to list, the goal is clarity. Now, those are the neighborhood level mechanics. Let's talk about the forces you won't see on a CMA, and I'll keep this tight. First, the 30-year fixed mortgage rate dropped to 5.98% as of February 26, 2026. That matters because it changes buyer psychology fast, especially in the premium market where small rate moves change monthly payments by a lot. Second, the Fed held the federal funds target range at 3.5 to 3.75% in late January. Translation, policy is no longer tightening aggressively, but it's not back to free money either. Third, the labor market is still adding jobs, 130,000 in January, with unemployment around 4.3%, but the benchmark revisions were a gut check. Last year's payroll level was revised down by 898,000 jobs. That tends to make high-income buyers more cautious, even when they're still financially capable. And lastly, the Housing Affordability Index rose to 116.5, which sounds like affordability is improving, but in places like Manhattan Beach, the practical impact is usually this. More buyers can qualify, but inventory is still the limiter, so the best homes don't magically get cheaper. For you as a seller in the next 3 to 6 months, the takeaway is simple. Your buyer pool has a little more oxygen, but they're not reckless. They're motivated and picky, which means presentation, pricing posture, and risk management matter more than ever. Quick question for you, because your answer changes how you should interpret all of this. What's your biggest worry right now? Is it selling too early, selling too late, or pricing it wrong? And what part of Manhattan Beach are you in? Drop it in the comments. It helps me aim these updates at the homeowners who need the most clarity. Now let's talk about the structural change, because Manhattan Beach isn't just a market, it's a policy environment. And policy quietly shapes scarcity. The most important structural signal right now is the city's posture on density. The city council denial of the high rows and verandas development is a very loud message in one sentence. Manhattan Beach is still defending low density character. For you as a homeowner, that's long-term supply protection. It acts like a moat. It doesn't mean prices only go up in a straight line, but it does mean large-scale supply relief is structurally difficult here. At the same time, the city is actively working on the quality of the lifestyle engine without expanding residential density in a way that floods the market. Project Pulse is underway, looking at long-term redevelopment options for key downtown parcels, including Parking Lot 3 and 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard. And the city is processing enhancement work tied to the Village Shopping Center. Then you have the unsexy but critical infrastructure layer, the 28th Street Infiltration Project breaking ground, and the Pacific Lift Station upgrade moving toward major construction. So here's the 3-beat way to understand what that means for your timing. First, Manhattan Beach is modernizing and protecting the city's core systems and its downtown experience while resisting meaningful new residential density. Second is what's happening now. You get improvements to walkability and infrastructure without a big surge of new competing housing stock. Third is where it lands. It shows up most clearly in the areas where buyers pay for lifestyle uncertainty, meeting downtown adjacent walkability premiums and the long-term value of scarcity in the most coveted single-family pockets. For sellers, that's a strategic tailwind, but it's not a free pass. Scarcity helps you, but only if your home is positioned correctly for today's buyer behavior. So what's the bottom line in March 2026? The central conflict is scarcity versus friction. Scarcity is still protecting detached single-family values and keeping the sprint lane alive. Friction, meaning monthly payment sensitivity, buyer selectiveness, and attached market inventory stacking, is shaping the condo and townhome lane and punishing sellers who price based on yesterday's expectations. And doing nothing is still a decision. If you plan to sell in the next 3 to 6 months, waiting is neutral. You're choosing to accept whatever buyer pool and competition set shows up later. So how do you play your cards in this market? If you're a single family homeowner, the goal is to capitalize on the leverage that still exists without getting tricked by the headline mirage. If you're a condo or a townhome owner, the goal is to protect equity by positioning early and realistically so that you don't end up negotiating from fatigue later. If you want me to build you a real plan detailing pricing posture, timing trade-offs, and the cleanest path for your specific address, grab HomeBot using the link in the description. And if you want the one-on-one strategy conversation, schedule a call using the link below. No pressure to list. The goal is to make sure future you is glad you handled it the way you did. Because in a market like Manhattan Beach, you don't need hype. You need a flight plan so that you don't fly blind with a multi-million-dollar decision. I'm Mr. Hernandez, and I'll see you in the next video.